the cameras flashed, the crowd froze, and just like that, Hollywood had a new obsession.
Yeah, a seemingly innocent Father's Day post goes up on Instagram, but behind all the smiles, a multi-million-dollar empire is just fracturing in real time.
Welcome to Starscope Report. Join Jordan and Jamie as they uncover Hollywood drama, music industry shakeups, and viral influencer scandals. From red carpet surprises to social media controversies, we dive deep into the stories behind the fame.
And today's deep dive is centered around a massive headline. You've probably seen it everywhere. David Beckham just reached out to Brooklyn again.
Right. But to really understand what's happening here, we can't just rely on tabloid gossip. We actually have to unpack a crazy mix of sources today.
Well, absolutely. We're pulling from celebrity news reports, legal analysis on trademark disputes, business succession case studies, and bizarrely enough,
A travel guide to North American tipping etiquette.
yeah. I mean, who would have thought tipping would play into this?
I know, right? But the mission today is to explore how this deeply personal family drama basically morphed into a corporate standoff. We're decoding what happens when family bloodlines intersect with, like, hyper-aggressive brand management.
So let's start with the event that thrust all this back into the spotlight. Over Father's Day weekend, Victoria Beckham offered what the press is calling an olive branch to her estranged son, Brooklyn.
Right, he's 26 now, and she posted this very curated throwback photo of him with his dad, David.
And David followed it up with his own tribute. He called fatherhood his most important job.
And the rest of the family just fell right into line. I mean, brothers Romeo, who's 23, and Cruz, who's 21, they both posted these glowing tributes to David.
It was a completely united front, like
Well,
a very public, deliberate display of family cohesion.
but the silence from Brooklyn was just deafening. I mean, he posted absolutely nothing for David.
Nothing at all. But what's really interesting is the contrast, right? Because his wife, Nicola Peltz Beckham, posted this highly emotional, glowing Father's Day post, but dedicated entirely to her own father,
Yeah, thanking him for his unwavering support and for always pushing her to chase her dreams.
which, in the language of celebrity social media, is just a highly calculated move. The PR strategy isn't always about what you say.
It's about what you choose not to say.
Exactly. And who you explicitly choose to praise instead. By elevating her own father on the exact day the Beckhams are trying to project unity, she's drawing this massive public line in the sand.
Oh, totally. But Brooklyn's silence wasn't even the only blow. We really need to talk about that brutal World Cup commercial.
Oh man, the DoorDash advert.
Yeah, so Brooklyn stars in this commercial that practically broke the internet. He's sitting there smirking, and he throws down his World Cup 2026 tickets onto a table.
And says he's watching the tournament from home because, quote, it's a long story, it's complicated.
Right. And he reportedly received a staggering $1 million payday just for that ad.
Which is wild when you add the context of the World Cup. David Beckham is, one of the most iconic figures in global football.
The World Cup is basically his domain.
Exactly. So Brooklyn taking $1 million to publicly toss tickets to his father's tournament on a table and smirk about their estranged relationship, that's a direct monetization of the family trauma.
And there's such a glaring irony here. Brooklyn has explicitly claimed that he wants peace, right? He wants privacy from his family's overwhelming spotlight.
But he is leveraging his football legend father's absolute biggest legacy to secure a massive payday.
It feels completely identical to a royal family defection, publicly stepping back from the institution, demanding privacy, while simultaneously monetizing the title to the highest bidder.
Yeah, he's using the estrangement itself as the product. He wants independence, but he's still heavily relying on the cultural capital of the family name to actually fund that independence.
Speaking of funding that independence, Brooklyn is watching the 2026 North American World Cup from his home in Los Angeles, ordering food delivery. And this is where the source material takes a fascinating detour.
Right, because his complete assimilation into American culture really highlights the divide from his UK roots.
Exactly. He's left the UK behind, and with it, a completely different socioeconomic system. Our sources on North American tipping culture illustrate just how drastic this shift is.
And this is going to be a huge issue for the 65,000 UK football fans traveling to the US for the tournament. They're about to face a massive culture shock.
Because in the UK, tipping is minimal. You might just round up the bill because hospitality workers have a guaranteed minimum wage.
Right, the employer pays the worker. But in the US, the federal tipped minimum wage is just $2.13 an hour.
Wait, $2.13? That is almost unfathomable from a European perspective.
Yeah, it's wild. Workers literally rely on tips to survive. It subsidizes their base income. So if you're a British fan ordering DoorDash in Los Angeles like Brooklyn, and you don't leave a 15 to 20% tip up front in the app.
Your order is going to be declined by the drivers. It will literally just sit on a counter getting cold.
Exactly. The sources show that 74% of Brits admit they are completely baffled by U.S. tipping culture.
And it's not just delivery. If you sit down at a restaurant in the States, 18 to 20% is expected as the baseline.
Yeah, anything less than 15% is actively communicating that you receive terrible service. Even at a bar, it's like $1 to $2 per drink.
Let's look at the math for those traveling fans, because the sources point out that sales tax is added at the register in the U.S. It's not included in the menu price like it is in the U.K.
So your bill's already higher than you expected, and then you have to calculate a 20% tip on top of that.
For fans budgeting around £86 a day, they might end up spending nearly £20 a day just on tips alone.
It's a completely different ecosystem. So, budget for the tips or you'll be eating cold food.
But this million-dollar commercial, ordering takeout in his new American life, is really just a symptom of a much deeper wound. Wait until you hear what actually happened behind closed doors at the wedding.
Oh, the wedding drama is cinematic. Because this commercial was just the public capitalization of a very private fracture.
Right. To understand how we got here, we have to look at Brooklyn's massive 800-word manifesto that he posted to Instagram.
He essentially wrote a short essay officially confirming the estrangement. He stated that he does not want to reconcile, and he cited the performative and inauthentic nature of his upbringing.
He claimed he grew up with overwhelming anxiety because his parents tightly controlled the family narrative in the press.
Which is an attack on the very foundation of brand Beckham. He's basically saying the flawless public image we've all been sold was actually a cage.
But the true catalyst for this escape attempt, the moment the cage door was forced open, centers around his April 2022 wedding to Nicola Peltz.
Let's unpack this because it is wild. First, there was the dress.
Right. Nicola was reportedly supposed to wear a custom design by Victoria Beckham, but at the 11th hour, the offer was allegedly withdrawn.
And Nicola ended up wearing Valentino instead.
In the fashion world, and certainly in Victoria's corporate structure, that is perceived as a massive public snub.
A wedding dress in that echelon of society isn't just a garment. It's a billboard. It is brand positioning. Wearing Valentino over the family brand was the first major fissure.
But what happened at the reception truly ignited the fire. We have to talk about the first dance.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Brooklyn claimed that Victoria literally hijacked it. The singer Mark Anthony was there, and he called Brooklyn to the stage for what was supposed to be his romantic debut with his new bride.
But instead, Victoria just steps right in.
Yeah. Brooklyn wrote that she danced very inappropriately on him in front of everyone, calling it the most uncomfortable and humiliating moment of his life.
Look at the underlying psychology there. You see a matriarch struggling to let go of the spotlight, and a son desperately trying to establish his own separate family unit.
It's a literal manifestation of someone refusing to cede the stage. And then the physical layout of the wedding only amplified that power struggle.
The seating chart. This detail just completely dissects the power dynamics.
Brooklyn and Nicola gave the seats at the head table to their grandmothers, Nanny Sandra, who is David's mom, and Nicola's nanny.
And Posh and Bex were relegated to an adjacent table.
Which reportedly led Victoria to actually call her own son evil.
I mean, it's a profound shift in power. Brooklyn was physically decentering his parents at the biggest event of his life.
In the context of a family that operates like a corporation, moving the founders away from the head table is akin to a boardroom coup.
He dismantled the corporate hierarchy in front of all their guests, and that fallout quickly infected the entire family system.
It turned into all-out sibling warfare. Brooklyn's younger brothers, Cruz and Romeo, actually blocked him on social media.
Yeah, Cruz even posted that they, quote, woke up blocked.
And then there's this bizarre subplot where Romeo started dating a model named Kim Turnbull, who had previously been linked to Brooklyn.
Brooklyn actually accused his mother of engineering encounters with his former flames to make him and Nicola uncomfortable.
It's so dark. It shows how systemic the rift is. It's not just Brooklyn against his parents. The entire family system is turning on itself to protect the core brand.
And it even trickled down to charity work. Nicola is a huge animal welfare advocate, right?
Right. When the devastating LA fires happened, she tried to raise support for displaced dogs.
And according to Brooklyn, it was the one time she asked for Victoria's help, just trying to leverage that massive platform for a good cause.
And Victoria flat out refused to support the charity.
Which brings us to the collateral damage of this entire feud. The youngest sibling, 14-year-old Harper.
This detail is just heartbreaking. So recently, David received his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The family was in Los Angeles, and Harper reportedly drove to Brooklyn's LA home with a handwritten letter.
Trying to mend fences with her big brother.
Yeah, but when she arrived, he wasn't even there. He was in New York.
The sources say Victoria was absolutely gutted by this. And insiders were adamant that this wasn't some calculated PR stunt.
No, it was a genuine, desperate attempt by a little sister to get her brother back.
We look at the Beckhams, and we see wealth, privilege, and celebrity. But what they're experiencing is actually a high-profile manifestation of a broader societal trend.
Right. Mental health professionals are calling it a silent epidemic of family estrangement. We just want to impartially present what the experts in our sources are saying here because it's a very prevalent issue.
Exactly. Modern kids, millennials, and Gen Z are increasingly willing to go no contact with their parents.
If you are listening to this and you've ever had to set a difficult boundary with a parent over the holidays, or, step away from a toxic dynamic for your own peace of mind, you are participating in the exact same generational shift.
The only difference is your family doesn't have a crisis PR team. In the past, familial duty often trumped personal well-being. You just dealt with the toxicity because it was family.
But today, younger generations are prioritizing their mental health. They're establishing rigid boundaries, and if those boundaries aren't respected, they just walk away.
Without the guilt or stigma that previous generations would have felt. Brooklyn is choosing his psychological safety over the institution of his family.
And that's not even the wildest part, because when you're a Beckham, a family fight isn't just about hurt feelings. Later in the episode, we'll talk about the shocking legal twist that threatens the entire empire.
Yeah, this is where the emotional drama hardens into cold, calculated corporate governance. We have to get into the trademarks.
Because this is where the story shifts from a tabloid spectacle into a fascinating legal and business case study.
Brooklyn claimed in his manifesto that before his wedding, his parents pressured him to sign away the commercial rights to his own name.
He said they were adamant that he sign it so the terms of the deal would be initiated. And when he refused, he claimed it affected their payday.
This is the absolute crux of Dran Beckham. Back in 2016, Victoria proactively registered all of her children's names as trademarks.
From a pure business perspective, you can understand the logic. She was protecting the intellectual property of the family empire from outside exploitation.
But the reality is, she was also protecting it from the kids themselves. By owning the trademarks, the parents retain control over how those names are monetized.
But here is the crucial timeline from the sources. Those trademarks are set to expire in late 2026.
And Brooklyn has heavily implied that he will absolutely not renew them. He is legally reclaiming his identity.
When your name becomes a trademark, it ceases to be just an identity, right? It becomes an asset on a spreadsheet.
And when a parent owns that asset, the child essentially becomes an employee of their own existence.
The sources drew a parallel to the business world here that is just wild. They brought up the fragrance mogul Jo Malone.
Oh, this is such a good comparison.
She sold her company, Jo Malone, to Estee Lauder in 1999. And then, years later, she tried to start a new venture called Jo Loves.
But because Estee Lauder owned the trademark to her name, she was actually sued in the high court for £200,000.
Just for using her own birth name on her new packaging? Is that essentially the threat hanging over Brooklyn, like that he could be legally penalized for operating under the name he was given at birth?
That is the exact legal mechanism at play here. Estee Lauder argued that Jo Malone was no longer a person. It was a protected asset they purchased.
The core philosophical issue here, especially with Brooklyn, is the realization that an identity cannot simply be bought, sold, or controlled by anyone other than the individual it represents.
Right. You cannot force a human being to license their own existence back from their parents.
Which brings us to this incredible study from the IMD Business School. Business scholars are literally using the Beckham family as a case study for what not to do in family business succession.
The sources mention this idea of the Icarus paradox. In the myth, Icarus flies too close to the sun and his wax wings melt.
But here it seems like the parents are melting the wings before the kid even takes off.
That is a great way to look at it. The researchers point out that 70% of business families fail at this exact transition.
Because powerful business families try to protect the next generation by clipping their wings. They delay their autonomy.
They trademark their names, they control their press, they do everything to ensure the child doesn't make a mistake that damages the core brand.
But by overprotecting them, by refusing to let them fail or succeed on their own merits, they actually breed massive resentment.
When a family system remains rigid and childhood roles are implicitly enforced on adult children, the system inevitably breaks.
You have 26-year-olds who are still being managed by a PR team like they are 12.
And when the separation finally happens, it isn't a gradual, healthy transition of power. It is abrupt, reactive, and destructive.
The IMD study emphasizes that independence isn't a threat to a family enterprise. It is a prerequisite for its survival.
So here is the ultimate question for us to chew on. If David and Victoria were so hyper-focused on protecting brand Beckham and managing the press to absolute perfection,
Did their incredibly tight grip actually guarantee the brand's fracture?
it's the tragic irony of the entire saga. By trying so hard to control the narrative and protect the legacy, they created an environment where their son felt he had to blow the entire thing up just to breathe.
They focused entirely on planting deep roots, but they forgot to let him grow wings.
Exactly.
Let's synthesize everything we've uncovered today because this journey has been wild. We started with a simple, albeit tense, Father's Day post on Instagram.
That led us to a $1 million World Cup commercial, where a son monetized his own family estrangement.
Which took us on a fascinating detour into the socioeconomic realities of why UK fans need to carry plenty of tip money when they land in North America for the games.
We looked behind the curtain at the wedding day sabotage, the hijacked first dances, the seating chart power struggles.
With sibling blockings and the heartbreaking attempts by a 14-year-old sister to mend the gap with a handwritten letter.
And finally, we landed in the complex, cutthroat legal realities of trademarking your own children's names and how treating a family like a corporate asset is a guaranteed recipe for a succession disaster.
It really is a story about the delicate, dangerous balance between family roots and individual wings.
It serves as a masterclass in how not to manage a transition of power, whether that power is emotional or financial.
We look at the Beckhams and we want to see a clean, easily diagnosable break. We want to point to a Valentino wedding dress or a shifted seating chart and say, there it is, that's the problem.
But the reality is so much murkier. It's a fractured landscape of trademarks, generational trauma, and the fundamental right to own your own identity.
It is the absolute definition of diagnostic muddy waters.
Yeah, without a doubt.
So we want to leave you with a lingering question to ponder on your own. The sources we've examined today show us that identity is the one asset you simply cannot trademark away from someone forever.
As we watch this highly public estrangement continue to unfold, will the ultimate legacy of brand Beckham be remembered for its unprecedented global business success?
Or will it be remembered as a cautionary tale of how treating a family like a corporation eventually bankrupts its soul? What happens to a dynasty when a child decides his own name is worth more than the empire?
If you're loving these Hollywood twists, make sure you're subscribed. We've got even crazier stories ahead.
You've been listening to Starscope Report, where Jordan and Jamie uncover the stories shaping Hollywood, music, and pop culture. Thanks for tuning in, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories that keep the stars shining.